Okay, students, in this video, introduction to the functions. Next part I am going to teach now. This is a very important part known as composition of functions. This is under heading operation on functions. See, generally in 10th standard you studied f circle g circle f of x. That is f dot g of x or g dot f of x or f composition g of x, g composition of x. That means here you are combining not one function, two functions you are combining. For example, f is one function they define from x to y. There should be another function g they define from y to z. So you are combining these two functions. Okay. So how will you combine these two? Means the domain of f, the codomain of f, for example, this is a codomain of f, should be the domain of g. So this f is defined from x to y, that means set x to set y, whereas g is defined from y to z. Then you are defining a new function h of x, which is defined from f to, which is defined from x to z. That means what? H of x is nothing but g circle f of x. For every x, small x belongs to capital X. So what is the meaning behind this means? For example, f is a function containing the elements a, b, c in a domain and x, y, z in codomain. Now yg is another function containing x, y, z, that means the same elements here, whatever is here also, then p, q, r. But here a is mapped with x, b is mapped with y, c is mapped with y. But here x is mapped with r, y is mapped with q, z is mapped with p. Now you are defining a new function g circle f of x, g of f of x, which is g composition f from x to z. That means from this one to this one, z. Now in the middle y we are eliminating. Okay. So for example, this is a, b, c. Now you see here a is related to x. From x it is related to r. So a to x, x to r. So final image is a to r only. You have to write for g circle f of x. Similarly, b is related to y, then y is related to q. So from b to y to q. Similarly, here z is related to p, c is related to y, so c is related to y is related to q, so y is related to q. Okay, so like that you have to write. So what you are doing is, in the middle one you are eliminating and you are providing the link from x to z. So middle one y is we are eliminating because there is no importance of y here. The final answer is from x to z. So one real world example I will tell. Let us assume x is the name of the students or students roll number who wrote the examination. Here examination, okay, roll numbers, students roll numbers. This capital X includes. This is a board. Board means what? Whiteboard, not blackboard. Board members who are correcting the papers, examination papers of the students. And then they will pass the result here. So here the result will be there. But the board members who are correcting the students, they don't know correcting in a particular student's paper or not. They don't know the roll numbers because it is decoded. But this is again encoded and it given to this z. So the finally we want student and result. We don't want what happened in between the board members. Whether the correction or corrected or not corrected, passed or failed, we don't want. But ultimately we need student's roll number, register number and result. Register number, result. Register number, result. So in the middle process, you are not interested. What is happening in the middle? It may be encoded, it may be decoded, whatever it may be. But it should be confidential. That's the marks should be confidential. Once they publish the result only will come to know. So before that they cannot know this is the result of particular student. This is the result of particular student. That they don't know. Okay, that will be secret. Okay, so ultimately this middle fellow there is no that much importance We are giving importance to first and last. Okay, that's why it is known as a composition, not one function. Two functions we are combining, in which first function domain and first function codomain and second function domain is same. Okay, students. So basically we are considering more than one function. And the definition of fog and gauff you already know. What is the definition of fog and gauff? You already studied. F circle g of x, f of g of x. That means g circle f of x, this one, g of f of x. Because for this g, f of x is the input. Okay, that's why g circle f of x. So in the reverse way also you can write f circle g of x. For f, g of x is the input. Okay, so reverse way. So these two are known as the composition of functions. Okay, so this is the definition. Next, very important concept, inverse of a function. This is very important, students. Later we are going to see a lot of problems based on inverse of the function. See, what is the inverse of a function? See, I am having a function which is defined from capital X to capital Y. X is the domain, Y is codomain. Now I can find the inverse of this function which is defined from Y to X, reverse, capital Y to capital X. That this function which I defined from capital Y to capital X is called inverse of the function f x to y. So if f is defined from x to y, the new function g should be defined from y to x, where g is known as the inverse of x, inverse of the function, first function. Okay, but students, in order to find the inverse of the given function, the given function must be bijective function. What is the meaning of bijective? In the earlier classes I told, bijective means both one to one and on to. That means the given function f should be both one to one and on to. Now we will check whether this function is one to one on to. See here, a is mapped with z, b is mapped with x, c is mapped with y. So 1 to 1. So it is a one to one function. Okay, one element is mapped with one element. Now you have to check whether it is an onto function or not. Yes, it is onto function. Why? Because onto means I already told you should keep codomain in your mind. You should give importance to codomain, whether all the elements in codomain should possess pre-image or not. Pre-image or not. So x pre-image it is there, B. Z pre-image A. Y pre-image C. So all the elements in codomain, okay, all the elements in codomain possess pre-images. Pre-images. So therefore it is a bijective function. So whatever the function they given f is a bijective function. So remember, students, very important concept. You can find the inverse of a function only if and only the given function f is a bijective function. If it is not bijective function, there is no criteria for inverse. You cannot find the inverse of the function. So basically one function you are finding the inverse of the function by reversing the order. One function f is defined from x to y, inverse of the function is defined from y to x. But the given function should be bijective. Okay, then f is the inverse of y, y is the inverse of f. Okay, so that's what they explained here. You see here, let f x to y be a bijection. This function is bijective, that we already checked. The function g y to x reverse, this is new function. Okay, defined by g of y is equal to x. If f of y x is equal to y, that means this is a given function, f of x is equal to y. That means x are given as the input, y is the output for this function. But reverse, y is the input, x is the output. You understand? G of y is the input, x is the output. So it's like reverse. Is called means what? This function is called the inverse of this f, and it is denoted by f inverse. It is denoted by f inverse. So f inverse is nothing but g of y. Okay. So in this case we can tell each and every function, both the functions are invertible functions. Okay. Now here you see these points. If a function f has inverse, f is invertible. That means if it possesses inverse, then we will tell that function as invertible function. Okay. For invertible function, you can prove two things. What are the two things is, see here, you can find the invertible function like these two conditions has to satisfy. Suppose f x to y be a bijection and g y to x be its inverse, that's what we told here, inverse function, then this condition must be satisfied. Very, very important. Gof is equal to ix, fog is equal to iy. That means g circle f of x should be ix. Whatever input you are giving, same output you should get. For example, input is x means ix. Okay. F circle g of y, this is f circle g of y, iy. Okay, like identity function, where ix and iy are identity functions on x and y respectively. So whenever the given function is invertible, these two conditions it has to satisfy. Then you can find the inverse of the given function. That is one method. But another method also there to find the inverse of the given function. But 4 steps you need to remember. Okay, that also we'll discuss later here itself. So when it is a given function is a bijective function, definitely inverse exists. If inverse exists, then must and should these two conditions should be satisfied. Gof of x is equal to ix, fog of y is equal to iy, where ix, iy are the identity functions on x and y respectively. So here f and g are inverses of each other. That means what? F inverse we can tell it as z, whereas z inverse we can tell it as f. That's what I wrote it here. F inverse we can tell it as z, g inverse we can tell it as f. So this is the main thing. Students, you need to remember 3 conditions. First, what is an inverse of a function? For the given function f x to y, g y to x is called inverse of the function. Okay, if f of x is equal to y, then reverse g of y is equal to x. That means what? Here instead of x, y will come. Instead of y, x will come. Instead of f, g will come because new function. So this is called the inverse of f. That is the first thing you should understand. Suppose what are the conditions to find whether the inverse exists for a given function or not, means the given function must be bijective function. That means it should be 1-to-1 and onto. That is the second condition. Suppose a function is invertible, that means inverse exists, then you can find the inverse also. For that, these two conditions it has to satisfy. G circle f of x ix, f circle g of y iy. Okay, then you can find automatically the inverse of each function. But there is another procedure also there to find the inverse. The 4 steps are there that we will find now. Okay, now listen students. Now they given the inverse of function definition, okay, in your textbook. So what is the definition? Whatever we discussed, they frame it like a definition. See, a function f x to y is said to be invertible if there exists a function g y to x, that's what I told, such that, what is the condition I told? G circle of x is equal to x, f circle g of y, because input is y. Okay, here input is x, that is ix, like identity function. Okay, f circle g of y is iy, where ix, iy are identity functions on x and y respectively. Okay, then g is the inverse of f, f is the inverse of g. So I can write g as f inverse, g as f inverse. Whatever we discussed, they frame it like a definition. That's it. If given function is invertible, must and should these two conditions should be satisfied. Okay, but generally there is another procedure is there to find the inverse of the given function. Working procedure to find the inverse of the given function from R to R. That means from real number to real number. So students, you should remember these 4 steps to find the inverse of the given function. First step, write y is equal to f of x. That means the given function you should write. For example, I am taking y is equal to 3x plus 2. So this is your first step. Y is equal to f of x. Okay, f of x they will give it as 3x plus 2. Next, write x in terms of y. அப்போ x yలో நீங்கள் கொண்டு வரணும். அப்போ 3x is equal to y minus 2. That is the meaning. அப்போ x is equal to y minus 2 by 3. So this is the meaning of write x in terms of y. So x yలో கொண்டு வரணும். Okay. Next, write f inverse of y, that is equal to expression in y. That means whatever you got this expression, I can replace f inverse of y is equal to y minus 2 by 3. Because why? Because f of x is equal to y. So f inverse of y is nothing but x only. So instead of x, I can write f inverse of y. Okay, that is the third step. Okay, first step, second step, third step. Fourth step, replace y as x. That means what? We will find f inverse of x. And the y க்கு பதிலா x போடணும். அப்போ x minus 2 by 3. This is the inverse of the function. F inverse of x. Okay, students, if you remember these 4 steps, you can do lot of problems on inverses. Okay, so they will ask one function to prove that it is a bijective function, and also they will ask to find the inverse of the function. Very important 5-mark question. Okay, in exercise it is there, whereas in example also it is there. Okay, so with these students I finished composition of functions, and also how to find the inverse of the function, what are the invertible functions, what are the conditions for the invertible functions. Okay, what are the conditions? Gauge of x is equal to ix, fog of y is equal to iy, where ix, iy are the identity functions of x and y respectively. Then g and f are inverses of each other. G is equal to f inverse, f is equal to g inverse. What is the simple procedure to find the inverse of the function? We discussed the 4 points. Okay, so these are the things, students, you need to remember. Okay, in the next video we'll see some other concept. So if you like this channel, subscribe this channel. Okay, bye.